been very vocal on matters of praising Ugandans, leaving a void in the legislative arm of government, Parliament. Today, we talk politics, law, as we begin another long ride of 366 days and give us a clear picture. To give us a clear picture, I have a political analyst, Job Kija, and a policy analyst, Godba Tumushabe. Gentlemen, I want to welcome you on this show. Thank you so much for having honored the invitation to be here. A warm welcome to all of you and Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. Happy New Year, Patrick.
Let me begin with you, Mr. Godba Tumushabe from the Great Lakes Institute for Strategic Studies. Today, we woke up the news at midday. Of course, there were some conflicting statements here and there, but eventually we got the hard, sad news that Muhammad Ssegirinya, who has been battling illness for quite some time, also court battles for quite some time. Today, he lost that battle. In the last couple of hours, I seem to have learned so much about this man, that he seemed to have understood the pain of his people, he seemed to have touched his people, he seemed to have fought their battles, even though he was in Parliament for a short while because of sickness and because he was jailed. But you understand the Ugandan politics. Perhaps you understand this man. For you, what really stands out from Muhammad Ssegirinya?
Yeah, first of all, Patrick, really my deepest condolences to the Ssegirinya family, and of course to the people of Uganda who have lost a legislator. One of the most memorable moments for me are those times when Ssegirinya mother was pleading for him to be released at one time, to be able to get medical treatment. I think there are times when he has been in court, he's sick, and he needs medical attention, and the mother is there pleading. And you know, as a parent, you really feel the pain of a parent, you know, to have your child sick and then incarcerated, and then you cannot get that child into the hospital to be seen by doctors. So you really feel like there's something that we as a people, as a country, that there's a way we don't attach the level of dignity that is required to our being as human beings. So that is always a moment that I remember. But I got to know Ssegirinya during the campaigns. I interacted with him just on a few occasions. We never got to know each other at a very personal level, but we were known to each other. But really, Ssegirinya is the guy that redefined the character of being a member of parliament. And by the way, at a very strategic level, you can consider Ssegirinya the more or less like the success, the definition of the success and the failure of Museveni's 40-year rule, because this is a guy who grows up in the ghetto. Now, if you know the ghetto has basically evolved over the last 40 years because of the economic progress that has been attained, the urbanization that has come with it, and then the growth of that space of deprivation within our urban centers, because that's really what you would call the ghetto. So there are all these young men and women. The
ghetto has so grown,
yes,
even cannibalized on the city.
Absolutely,
so we have just become one big ghetto.
Absolutely, yeah. So so you have these young men and women that have grown up facing the harshness of the environment that has been created, the economic environment and the political environment that has been created, and then they are able to be resilient and survive, and in some cases thrive, to get to a level where a guy of Ssegirinya character is able to mobilize and organize and be elected an MP. So when you look at him as an MP, it's like, oh, this is a success story, overcoming adversity. But then when you look at the kinds of conditions he has gone through, you see, this is also a success, a story of failure, because we as a people and the government have failed these people. But finally,
this is the man who was not yet even there when President Museveni became president in 1986, born in 1988.
Absolutely. And so Ssegirinya becomes an MP and then redefines how an MP relates to his people, because Ssegirinya became basically loved by Kawempe, and I used to follow the kinds of programs he would be running. He's building health centers, he's doing community organizing, and you know, this is a guy who is a regular guy. Sometimes, you know, there are some of us who have gone to school, we speak too much English, and you know, you put on neckties and put on suits, but this is a guy who is just a regular guy who connects with his people so directly, and even within the limits of the means that he has, he is able to gain that traction and work to better the lives of his people within those limits. I think that you know, this Ssegirinya really is one of those MPs that we have to talk about probably now and in the future, because of the way he changed the landscape of what being an MP would look like in Uganda.
Mr. Job Kija, Mohamed Ssegirinya beat 9 other contenders, and he actually got a landslide, over 47,000 votes in Kawempe. But even though he was not there most of the time to represent his people, because he spent 360-something days, 540-something days in prison. And then when he came out, he was in hospital, in all hospitals in Uganda. He was in Aga Khan Hospital, he was in Netherlands, he was in Germany. But even the few times he had, this man seemed to have connected more with his people than all those who didn't have any trouble. I wonder what you make of the character of Ssegirinya.
For me, really, first of all, the best condolences not just to the family of the late Honorable Mohamed Ssegirinya, but also to his constituents and even Uganda, because I think Uganda has lost a great resource in Ssegirinya. Ssegirinya is the MP that I think Uganda hoped for, but never got the opportunity to have, because actually, if you just listen to his manifesto, before, I was listening to one of the talk show recordings before he even became MP, and the talk show host asked him what he would do if he became president. And of course, he jokingly said that would be maybe in 2090. But he said, well, if I were to become president, I would start by reducing the size of parliament. 529 MPs is too huge, 100 MPs are enough. The second thing that he talked about was increasing the number of medical workers and the number of teachers, and increasing their salaries. And I think for me, if you just listen to Ssegirinya speaking, before he starts speaking in such sense, you'd imagine that maybe this is some riffraff. Now when he starts speaking in such a manner, you realize that this actually is such an intelligent man that the only thing that he lacked is probably having a bit more exposure and education. But in reality, he's actually, even as an MP, I think he's far better than so many people in that house. If you look at the manner in which they engage, the issues that they are deliberating on, he really spoke to the issues that affect citizens, and I think for me that is something that really stands out in the character of the person of Ssegirinya. But for me, the demise of Honorable Ssegirinya and really points me to two things, reminds me about two things. Around his life. The first one is in the manner in which he was arrested. That he ended up being incarcerated for over 500 days. I recall when he was, he recorded a statement in Masaka. He was taken to Masaka. And the interview that he gave to the media, he was really wondering that for a person who loves people so much that I could even build a hospital to save their lives, to be the one that is accused of killing people. Okay, so really the contradiction in that, in the person of Ssegirinya and the offenses that is being accused of, is something that really stands out for me. But then secondly, when he was given bail, when he was released the first time, even when he narrates about the experience that he went through, he actually said that he was hesitant to leave the prison, okay, because he actually expected that maybe he would be
bumped off.
Yes, bumped off or even rearrested. And indeed, it even turned out that actually, if you watch the news that followed his rearrest then, it was really reminiscent of the Black Mamba days. You remember the Black Mamba siege on the court. And for me, it really pokes holes in the whole claim that we even have access to justice in this country, judicial independence, that someone can be given bail and then you end up being abducted once again by drones. And I think for me, anybody that gets arrested, well, today when I was coming here, someone sent a message and said, well, let's pray for these two gentlemen and hope that, and some people said, no, we're going to wait actually outside Serena to be sure that they are not picked up and taken in. So for me, it really characterizes the kind of politics and even peace and freedom that apparently the current establishment claims to have brought for us.
Godba Tumushabe is a teacher of law at the law school, Makerere University. I wonder what kind of law you teach, but your products really, with all respect, you know, I've seen some of your products doing their trade, and I'm like, okay, you have gone through the hands of a great man. Yeah. But let me ask this, because you are a lawyer, for more than 500 days, somebody incarcerated, and facing such, you know, very explosive kind of charge, which is subversion and you know, murder and stuff like that, and yet evidence is not adduced to conclude this case. What do you make of that as a lawyer in our judicial system?
No, you know, I've raised this point, Patrick, before, that one of the most frustrating things in this country is, you know, many people try to argue things or discuss things as if we are operating in a normal situation. We are dealing with the abnormal as a country. We are dealing with the abnormal almost in every respect. You know, I think there is a time, I don't know if it's 2014, 15? No, maybe even much later, when New Vision published a story and said that 14% of Ugandans are mad. And you know, 14% of Ugandans with our current population, you're talking about I think about 30 million people. Yeah, no, about 3 million. About 3 million people.
Is it 14 or 40? I don't remember what figures they say.
I think it's higher than that. God is trying to be modest.
Yeah. So bottom line is, and so sometimes bottom line, when you see people, including government officials, you see them do things or say things, and you say, maybe this report is actually accurate because these are not acting like normal people. So the situation we are in is not normal, in the sense that the questions you are raising about how people like Ssegirinya are arrested and they are incarcerated and they are held incommunicado and their cases will be brought to court for mention, and they brought for mention and they are not, and they can't be concluded. Their investigations, they are not concluded. Basically gives you a sense of like a situation that are not normal. Remember that the Ssegirinya case came with the murders in Masaka.
Yes.
You know, I still fail to comprehend that you can have the security infrastructure that we have in this country, and you have people coming up every night in a region like Masaka, killing people every night. And you have deployed the entire security infrastructure, and for a whole month, you can't figure out who is killing who.
Because Ssegirinya is too smart for you.
Yeah, because Ssegirinya is too smart. So sometimes people want us to believe that no, this is the government is trying to control this. You remember that there was a case of the women, the young women who were being
in Wakiso,
who were being killed in Wakiso and Entebbe.
Yes.
You know, women every day. Reports are coming out, this one has been killed, this one is killed, this one is killed. The president comes up and said, we're not going to investigate this one, and everything stops. But there is nobody who gives a report on who was killing these women and who were actually these women. You know, the most striking thing is that in most of those killings, you hardly got to know of the families who had lost people. So then you ask yourself, are we actually dealing with a normal situation? So when you say you are a teacher of law, I'm saying, one, this country, we've said time and again that this is a country that is under what is called rule by law, not the rule of law. When there is a rule of law, it means that all institutions of state, whether you are a small boy or a small man called Patrick Kamara or Godba Tumshawe in some village, or you are a president at the top, or you are a minister, or you are an army officer, you are all subject to the law. There is equality before the law. In Museveni's Uganda, you are dealing with what we call rule by law. You choose what to do, and even in cases where it is contrary to the law, you can enact a law to make it legal. So that's the kind of situation we are dealing with. So we are not in a normal situation. You know the struggle that has been going on in the military court, in the court martial, and lawyers, Ugandans are saying, you, Justice Owinyo Dolo, as the head of the judiciary, you have a case that came before you where the constitutional court said it is unconstitutional. In other words, it's illegal for civilians to be tried in the court martial. And the case comes to you, and you issue orders halting any implementation of the decision, and then for now 2 years, for 4 years, you cannot deliver a decision.
Yesterday, I seem to have seen a letter written by the chairman of the court martial on the Monday.
Yeah,
this letter,
yeah. And then you ask yourself and say, but
construction
how?
is.
So you ask yourself and say, how is it possible that you have a country of over 45 million people, and they accept to be led? Their judiciary is headed by the Chief Justice, by this kind of Chief Justice. How is it possible that you are headed by, you have a 45 million people, and you have a Speaker of Parliament who will go on TV? You are conducting proceedings on TV, and she conducts a vote, and all the MPs said no, and she says, you have said yes, and then life goes on as normal. You are dealing with, I think there is this, we have a mental situation that we're dealing with in this country, and it is reflecting in all the actions that are happening. Okay. Because you have also seen, I mean, there are actions that are done by the military. Sometimes me, I sympathize with them because, you know, they are going through a lot of trauma because of what they are subjected to. You have police officers. You see the way they deal with protesters, and they are brutalizing them because this is post-traumatic stress disorders that people are suffering from, and that is reflecting on the way we conduct ourselves, on the way our security forces conduct themselves, and on the way we then undermine the dignity of Ugandans.
You know, Honorable Job, if we may ask,
you can call me His Excellency.
No, I wanted to say with Honorable Ssegirinya, and then, but could also be a prophecy. No, you know, if you see the life and character of the Honorable Muhammad Ssegirinya, sometimes he appeared comical, playful, joyful. You know, maybe even you could even think unserious. But in that manner, in that kind of tactic, he was able to connect with his people and was a great mobilizer. Do you think the people across the aisle, when they saw these attributes of this man, they could have gotten scared?
Well, if you follow the story of Ssegirinya, right from how he came to Kampala, he says he came on a matoke truck, I think. And when he reached Kampala, he didn't even know where to go. So this is someone who came from almost nothing.
A real hustler.
He's a real hustler. He's the real from, they call it from coming from grass to grace. And I think he really worked his journey from the bottom to the top. So clearly, if a person of the caliber of Ssegirinya who doesn't become MP by mistake, he's someone who has worked for it. Because the number of people that we have in this parliament, you know, they buy their way there. But this is someone that started really from the grassroots. He started, I think he formed, he started calling himself MP to be even before he had become a councillor. And then he used to calling
radio shows,
radios,
TV programs.
Yeah, and for him he started representing a certain constituency, even before he became anything, any leader. So he appointed himself and he worked his way towards that. He connected with the people. He actually started working for the people even before he became anything in terms of the actual leadership. So I think for someone that has built his journey through such a mechanism, any establishment that looks like this would actually be worried of him. Because that one, if you had, Professor Loko Nyango wrote a paper called Multiplying the Jiggers. So if Ssegirinya is a jigger and he has the potential to multiply as many jiggers as himself, then he could potentially become problematic.
This infested.
The country becomes jigger infested. So if you have so many Ssegirinyas, you could actually create a problem for an establishment that thinks like this. So for me, I think they actually looked at him as a threat, and probably that's why. I mean, up to now, we don't have an answer as to why he was incarcerated for over 500 days. Because I think up to now, the trial has never kicked off.
It can.
So there is a possibility, Mr. Godba Tumushabe, that Ugandans and his family and members of National Unity Platform will be suspicious that this death. Some people will say it is foul play. It will never be clear in people's mind. They will not accept it.
There is no way Ugandans cannot be suspicious that you can arrest a member of parliament and hold him for over 500 days, and you cannot prosecute a case against this person to conclusion. And there is no report of anything. And so there is no way you should not be suspicious, because I mean these are political cases. Most of the cases we've been handling from the political side, they are cases of persecution. They are not prosecution. Remember that Kawempe in terms of the city, I know I was following a lot during the 2016 elections. Kawempe really was one of the biggest centers of resistance. You also remember that Kawempe is the area where this gentleman called Zebra Mando was killed, and you recall that the president went on TV and addressed the nation, and basically admitted on public TV that it was his security that killed Zebra Mando, and basically said, I'm going to investigate this, and the culprits will be brought to book, and I report back to you. And up to date, he has never come back to report to Ugandans. So how did Zebra Mando die? So Kawempe in 2016 was really under serious military occupation, the levels of deployment. Some of us who follow
no wonder the jokes of the Republic of Kawempe.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because the whole idea of the Republic of Kawempe, you know, those are mobilization terms. So it was a very highly mobilized area because of leaders like Ssegirinya. So if you have a regime that fears people like the current regime, then you definitely there are going to be a lot of people that get injured, that get killed because of these kinds of regimes. I always share with people one saying by one of the great writers who said, when the government fears people, there is liberty. When people fear government, there is tyranny. Now, I always add that for Uganda, the problem is not those two. There is a third one where government and the people fear each other. And therefore, what you have is anarchy. And you can see anarchy in every aspect of our lives. Whether it's on the roads, whether it's in terms of people protesting and then there's the security people come and unleash violence on them, whether it's in the hospitals where we cannot attend to our people. So you basically have a situation where government and the people fear each other.
Even in the courts.
There's anarchy in the courts, there's anarchy in the parliament. So it's really a product of people and government fearing each other. And therefore that's why you have the cases like Ssegirinya. And then I think that in a country where a government respects the dignity of its citizens, my view is that Ssegirinya would be alive.
I don't know, Mr. Jobu Kija, what you make of today in the afternoon, before 12 p.m., news started coming in, Ssegirinya is dead, no, his brain dead, no, he's not, no. And in fact, even our colleagues on different media houses, they started using statements that I really found very unpalatable, that he's not yet dead. I mean, how can you say he's not yet dead as if you know
that he should die? He
should die. And then even Luganda say, Tanafa. I said, how can you write something like that? And on a lower third of a TV. But what do you make of that confusion? Brain dead, he's not, and then the hospital comes out, and then finally they give us this information. I mean, what does that tell us about our country and the institutions of our country?
No, I saw actually, he was reported dead, I think, at around 9. And the way this news came through was, so he has been in ICU, yes, I think, for 2 weeks. So of course the mom has been there throughout this time. So this morning, I think all his organs shut down, including his brain. Now, usually when your brain shuts down, initially actually they would say when your heart stops beating. But I think lately it's your brain. When your brain shuts down, you are declared dead. So I think his brain shut down. The medics realized that his brain had shut down, and the word could have gone to the mom. But before the official report had been released, the mom, of course, quickly rushed, because she has been updating these people. Then she told them, finally, he has died.
He's gone.
He's gone. So I don't want to blame the hospital. I don't want to blame the mom. I don't want to blame the people who were informed, because he was in that vegetative state for quite some time. He was on life support. I've been in situations where I have been asked whether someone could be put off life support. And I know what it means. Sometimes the bills really are just going.
You know, what really perturbed me was from my own colleagues in the fourth estate, where they are running to say he's not yet dead. And
so I think what caused the problem...
I mean, such words. You say he's not dead, enough. He's not yet dead. What
caused the problem was when the hospital insisted that, no, we actually can't declare him dead. Because they seem to say there's, I don't know, some small pulse or something like that. But everything else showed that he was dead.
Declaring someone is dead is a medical... It's a medical action.
Yes. Yeah.
It's not like you come and say someone is dead. No, that's why there is always a death certificate. It means that the appropriate professionals have conducted the proper diagnosis and they're able to declare you dead. So really there's nothing to discuss about whether he was dead or not. I think what Patrick is saying is, the way we talk about this is basically what is disturbing, and we should also not be shocked, because that's how we have increasingly, that's how we have become accustomed to dealing with life in this country. This country, we no longer value life. We no longer value life. You've seen cases where someone who is known to be a regime sympathizer dies, and then people are like, now it has also reached you. And then if someone who is opposed to the regime, they say that's good riddance. So that is a culture of not valuing life. That for every life we look at it in partisan lenses. In other words, we are no longer looking at ourselves as Ugandans. Because you see, when we are Ugandans, it means that if Patrick is being hurt, whether by government or by someone else, I feel it because Patrick is Ugandan like me. But because now we are able to distinguish and say, oh, for you are NRM, or you are Museveni people, these ones are Besigye people, these ones are new people, then we can be able to devalue the lives of those people who are not like us.
I've just been watching a video.
And that is really a painful situation.
I've just been watching a video of the funeral at the National Cathedral of the former US President Jimmy Carter.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump is just seated next to Barack Obama. And these guys were talking, you know, and cracking each other and smiling. And I'm like, just the other day, they were real political rivals.
Yeah.
But if you see them seated in the cathedral at the funeral of Jimmy Carter, you can't even believe that these guys have been opposed to each other. What would it take for us to know that, okay, we're going into a political season, we're going to campaign, but that should not actually divide us?
Yeah,
we shouldn't be enemies bakalasti, if I may use that word.
I think for me, it's, of course, we all have a duty, a role to play in terms of sanitizing our politics. And of course, usually, for me, when the blame is put on the citizen, I actually throw it back to the leadership, because there's a reason as to why some people are leaders and others are led. So the leadership is actually supposed to provide that direction. But you see, if you have a leadership that whereby you know that if I oppose it, I'm going to end up where Ssegirinya is. Because Ssegirinya, if you actually listen to his story, they will tell you that by the time he was locked up, he was coming from some specialized medical care in, I think, Netherlands. Okay? So clearly, and the government knew that this is a sick person. And so they got him and locked him up for 500 days. And while he was locked up, the medical superintendent of prison, Kakoraki, who actually comes from my village, mentioned that, produced a report and said, no, we actually can't manage Ssegirinya's case. But the government insisted on keeping this guy under incarceration. So when you hear people blaming the government for the death of Ssegirinya, okay, of course we've had stories of things which happened to them. I mean, today when I posted on one of the groups that Ssegirinya died, someone quickly responded and said the next person is Aaron Kiza. Okay? Now, that is not a very simple, light statement.
That's not simple.
Any of us, God knows it, that when they take him in, anything could happen to him. The other day, Honorable, Winnie Kiza called for a press conference. I don't know if you really read between the lines in terms of what Honorable, not Winnie Kiza, Honorable Winnie Byanyima called a press conference. If you read between the lines, you could actually tell that Honorable Winnie Byanyima is scared about her husband's safety while in prison.
But how would you not be scared?
No, you'd be scared, but she was bringing out visible, vivid examples, pointers to the fact that actually he's not safe. Okay, the change of the in charge of the prison, the stopping people from taking in food, hand over food. I mean, that you can't even trust that the authorities with your food.
No, you can't.
You can't. Even me, if I were locked up and my food was brought to me by a prison officer and it was not brought by God that I understand so well, that I trust, I will not eat it. So I think for me, it really points to the fact that we are in a state whereby citizens have totally lost trust in the government, in that even when government might be doing the right thing, citizens will actually doubt whether government is doing the right thing.
I've actually seen senior government officials utter statements that are completely out of, I don't know even how to say, and I'm talking about senior, and then it's life as normal.
Yeah, but I mean, none other than General Sejusa, the one who said even in high command meetings you have to go with your chapati in your jacket. And you know, Ugandans then, we take something like that lightly. It's not light. As Job said, you have a situation where there is a total breakdown of trust in the government and at different scales. Now, you are talking about how do you change this kind of situation? I have said time and again, say, if you have a president who addresses a press conference, goes on TV, and tells you, we are going to crush those people, we are going to destroy the opposition, you're going to do this and this, and then his opponents almost use exactly the same language, to talk about the president's supporters. You are creating a discourse that is so toxic that even innocent people will end up being harmed in the situation. So that's why when you are a leader, you are required by sheer etiquette. You don't have to be very intelligent. You just appreciate that you are a leader, and therefore there are certain responsibilities that are vested in you to be able to project a certain narrative.
That's why sometimes they're called the fountain of honor.
Oh yeah, for the president, it's even exceptional. For the president, you cannot go and speak far. The seven supporters, these days they call him fountain of honor as if it's a name. But normally, that title called fountain of honor in the Constitution, it's not your name, neither is it your title. It is an honor bestowed on the person who is able to act in accordance with the Constitution. That you are the epitome, the epitomization of the values and the principles that are enshrined in that Constitution. If you understand what I mean. So it is that conduct that automatically transforms you into a fountain of honor. Yeah?
Even if you just say the honorable, a honorable person.
Yeah, even a honorable person, there's something that makes you honorable.
A vanguard of something good.
Yes, yeah.
But the word honorable, so
but you see, the other day Jonathan Odul told us that he was being called a Westivu and he thought it was a good thing. Until when he realized that a Westivu now means a thief.
So you can imagine.
An English writer who spent 40 years on the Rwenzori Mountain, the late Thomas Stacy, he said something in his book, The Tribe. I think he was writing about the Bakonjo. And then he said he would go into and hear people saying, honorable, honorable. But actually, in his ear, because of poor English, he was hearing the word honorable, honorable, honorable. And later he realized that actually it was even the best. It was representing exactly who they are.
For Uganda, we've become so basic that these titles now are meaningless. That's why when you go to even in rural areas, in the villages, even an LC3 chairperson wants to be called honorable, a councillor. Then there is this whole talk about like, oh, once a honorable, always a honorable. Even when you are no longer an MP, or you declared your intention to stand, they call you honorable, and you realize.
And the beauty is when somebody is called to introduce themselves in public, I'm Honorable Godiba.
Absolutely. I'm like, okay.
That's become even a name now.
So even those that have lost elections.
Yeah, they also want to be called honorable. And so there's that. So there's something we've lost as a people. In terms of, I like calling it the dignity of the human person. A society that does not dignify life has lost its character as a society. The fact that now, because this is new, that people will celebrate because someone has died because of his political orientation. The fact that if someone had a motorcycle accident, you will see, well, we all drive by. In not so long past, people would scamper to help and make sure that this person gets to hospital.
Today, Godiba, I was watching again the funeral at the National Cathedral in Washington of Jim Carter, and people talking about the president who lived for up to 100 years. But every Sunday, no matter where he was, he would go back to teach Sunday school. And then he would make sure he was a carpenter, would be making, maybe he's making something, and furniture. And he still lived in a house, a red brick house in Georgia for 77 years. A very simple guy. This was a man who had nuclear codes that could end life on Earth.
Absolutely.
But he still lived simple.
And it's changing lives around the world.
Yes. But that simplicity versus
it's not simplicity, it's character.
Actually, almost everybody is talking about character.
It's character. There's something that character basically makes you do. Character makes you determine or make right decisions about right and wrong. And because you have character, you are not going to do the wrong things. When you don't have character, even when you know the right things, you end up doing the right things because this is not meaningful to you.
So Job, you know the electoral process very well. I wonder what is going to happen now, because the roadmap is already out from the Electoral Commission. Are we likely to see Kawempe go for a by-election?
Well, actually, it's supposed to be, if a seat falls vacant a year before the elections, is it a year now?
It's not yet.
It's not yet. So
I want to request Patrick that we don't discuss by elections.
No, I'm going to discuss. I'm not going into there, but I'm just saying whether we are likely to see people again for nomination and stuff like that.
If that happens, let it happen. But let's discuss the principles. Now, why should we worry about a by-election, even of someone for a constituency where someone probably would not serve so many months in office? I think let's focus the discussion on principles, really. I think we've just lost someone.
Yeah, but we also lost a former MP.
Yeah, Babadiri.
Yeah. I just want to move on, because the roadmap to election 2026 is on. I wonder, you are a lawyer, you are a political analyst, and the way how Aaron Kiza was also jailed as he's trying to represent his client, it was very funny. What do you make of that?
It was funny.
It was funny. because they are choosing to banging the table. I've seen a letter purportedly written by the chairman of the court martial, and I'm thinking, somebody.
What was he writing?
The letter explaining why Aaron Kiza was arrested, and I'm asking, is this really from you?
Yeah. No, for Aaron Kiza, Aaron Kiza is one of the most decent and disciplined lawyers in our profession. For many of us who know that.
But he can also be very daring. I know him.
No, it's not daring. I don't call it daring. I think it's another problem that we have when people who stick to the truth, who speak truth to power, are called to be daring. No, you are basically, again, it's also to do with the character, because how do you tell lies? How do you lie, or how do you live a lie when you know it's a lie? Yeah. So for me, Aaron Kiza is that decent, humble guy, because we've known each other. He comes from Tungamo, so we've known each other not only as village boys but also as professionals, and we go into meetings where we are planning activities, and you see this is a guy who is able to listen, who is able to give informed advice or informed opinions. So as I tweeted, Aaron Kiza happened to be in the wrong place, before the wrong people, at the wrong time. Because if the General Court Martial had not been instrumentalized against Ugandan citizens, Kiza Besigye and his colleague would not be there, and therefore Aaron Kiza would not be there. So no matter what explanation you give, whether you are General Court Martial or any of these people who are normally saying, oh, he didn't behave well. No, he should not have been there in the first place. The discussion should be, why should men and women of the UPDF, this is a force. By the way, this is a force. I always, when I discuss with colleagues, especially in the security, I say, if you discount many of the things that Museveni has done, you have to give him credit for creating the conditions that have enabled the professionalization of the UPDF. That you have smart men and women, highly educated, that are now in command in the UPDF. So for me, the fundamental question that I keep on asking myself, how, if with this level of exposure and education and whatever, even when you have these command and control issues, how are you able to allow an institution like the UPDF that Ugandans have a very strong affinity to to be instrumentalized against citizens? That is the question we should be dealing with. The question that Aaron Chiza was shouting, what? No, he was in the wrong place before the wrong people at the wrong time.
Yeah, I think there was a Russian writer, he called them brilliant what? I forget the word, brilliant something. Yeah. We're going to take a break, and you're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Amara. My guest tonight I have Job Kija, who's a political analyst, and Godba Tumushabe, a policy analyst. And now we want to look into the year 2025. 2025 is, of course, a campaign year. And years like this, in most cases, Job, are marred by violence. Is there an indication that maybe this year will be a little different? The violence levels will not be like what we saw in 2020?
We've done a number of studies as idea on election violence. And one of the things that really comes out prominently in those studies is that election violence is never resolved. If you look at the past elections that we have held, there's always a spillover of violence from the past elections. And the other key finding is that the violence usually escalates in the next election. It's usually more than what happened in the past election. So if you look at the 2016 election, of course there was violence. Now, in the 2021 elections, we had new forms of violence that we had never even envisaged, that we had not seen in the past. So for instance, this is the first time that we had outright shootings on the streets. I mean, in just 2 days, the official figure is 54, but other sources say there are actually more people than that were killed in those 2 days. Children, women, to date. I mean, the president himself, I think, confessed that, you know, there are some innocent people that were killed. And he promised to compensate the families of those that were killed. To date, I don't think that has happened. The second form of violence that we saw vividly emerging in the last election that had not happened in the past was abductions. The drone became a signature name to date, in that lately, when you are discussing on WhatsApp groups and you say something that sounds controversial, it is no longer even that a drone will come for you. It is now the color of the drone that you prefer. They ask you,
because they will get you anyway.
Yeah, what color of drone do you prefer? So we had the drone introduced in the last elections. Yeah. We had abductions happening. Noop was talking about over 2,000 people that were abducted and arrested in all manner back in the day. As we speak, actually, they say, of course, there are people who died, who were found in swamps, dumped in swamps and in other places. There are those who came back and they say were dropped in a forest, and then they are talking of things like being sodomized. In the past, we're not hearing of things like that. But that's also, I think, another form of...
So it has gone a notch higher.
It's a notch higher. It's another form of political and election violence, if you're to dig in and really analyze it properly. To date, we have 19 people that I think are still missing. Nope still talks of 19 people.
Including the famous John Bosco Kiwalama.
John Bosco Kiwalama, that the Prime Minister actually said they have in their custody.
She did.
But to date, he has not been produced. But also, really there's been a prominence around forced confessions. Yeah. The trial in military courts, yes, it was happening before, but this time it was more prominent, especially around electoral-related trials, but also forced confessions. If you've been following the story of Olivia Lutaya and then and group, okay, they were held for 2 years, 4 years, actually. Four. They were held for 4 years, okay, incarcerated for 4 years, until finally Balaam and Full Figure went and did their magic, and
Full Figure is very magical.
And Full Figure is a presidential advisor. Full Figure is a presidential advisor. They did their magic. Some of them confessed, owned up, they got released, but we saw what happened when Olivia Lutaya came out, and even the new lawyers were telling us that, you know, these people have been forced to confess. And Olivia came and told us that actually these people forced us. Even Sanya, is it called Sanya? Who, Sanya something, Mujahin something like that, whom the Balams and Full Figures had taken, and he had actually continued with the narrative that, you know, we rigged the elections, yet actually by the time elections happened, these people were in custody. So he also came out later, I think last week or so, and confessed that, you know, we were forced. This was a forced confession. It was all lies that we were trying to really paint a bad picture of Noop and the presidential candidate. So the point I'm making is that we have had violence escalate in the next elections more than previous elections. And I think really already we actually are seeing the signs of election violence. The tweets by General MK, that is election violence. The threats to behead a presidential contender and remove his teeth. These are things that shouldn't be taken lightly. Well, some people don't take MK seriously. I think I'm one of the people. I take him seriously because, first of all, he occupies a very privileged position.
I was wondering why you don't take him seriously.
I can't. No, there are people who say, you know, he's just a joker, he's joking.
He's the chief of defense forces.
Yeah, he's the chief of defense forces.
He's the four-star
people
general.
accuse him of being drunk. And yes, of course, it is true that I follow him. And I'll confess that I see usually he tweets in wee hours, weird hours. So it's easy to blame it on the alcohol. But for me, I think this is someone who is talking in his right sense. And so when he makes a threat to behead somebody, to remove his teeth, and he continues, he's consistent about it, that is a threat that shouldn't be taken lightly. Actually, if MK threatened to behead me, I would actually either go and
make a will.
I would actually be, I would feel threatened. Yeah, I would feel threatened. So for me, the point I'm making is that election violence has already started.
The other day he put a disclaimer that these are some of my jokes.
No, you're the CDF.
You can't threaten to behead someone and you call it a joke.
Yeah. No, you see, Patrick. Kakwenza Rukirabashaija, who is in Germany, has confessed that the person who tortured him is MK. He says it. If you go on his Twitter pages, you will see that. Those marks, I don't know whether you saw those images.
I saw them.
If you saw, if indeed it is true.
They are gory. They are gory.
Yes, yeah.
They are gory.
If it is true that under the watch of MK, this happened to Kakwenza, I can't be Bobby Wine and you threaten to behead me, and I just take it lightly.
Have you read Kakwenza's book, The Greedy Barbarian?
Yeah.
I have read it too.
I have. The description there,
no.
it's really...
Sometimes, I don't know what to say, but that book...
Yeah. You look scared already.
That book. The Greedy Barbarian.
You look scared of the book.
No. I'm like, what were you?
Yeah.
So Patrick, I think to date we still have people that are still locked up and they are still missing. So the election violence of the last election has not yet actually been concluded. But also, the violence has already started playing out from these threats that we are seeing on Twitter. And I expect it to even escalate as we head towards the next elections. Because if you look at this next election, I think for me, it's a very critical election in the transition politics of this country. Because most likely, if we are to go, it's President Museveni who talks about biology. If we are to go by biology or by nature, there's a very high likelihood that it will be difficult for
he actually talked about biology when I was having a discussion with him, an interview.
Yeah, he did.
But he has defied.
He was looking at you.
He has defied.
He was looking at you.
We don't know whether he'll be as lucky as President Carter to make it to 100.
We pray that he's lucky.
We pray that he's lucky. Yeah. But if he makes it to 100 and is still in his sober mind, of course, there's a very high likelihood that he will still contest. But we pray for him.
Will be secured. So one time I had Secretary General Richard Todwong say they have 18 million registered voters, supporters in the Yellow Book. But also when I was cross-checking with Biawakama and the National Electoral Commission, he also has 18 million registered voters. Yeah. So in other words, all the voters registered of the Electoral Commission are actually the same for NRM, right?
Yeah, if you take the narrative that NRM is a mass party.
But you know that the Electoral Commission at one point they said there were 18 million.
18,
yeah.
And the NRM Yellow Book also has 18 million.
They are telling you they are a mass party. But let's say, on a serious note, Patrick,
try to explain.
On a serious note, I've already said time and again that you think of NRM as a cult organization, if you know cults. Yeah? Yeah? No, they're cults. They are... Some of them, even these groups of the Bujingos, these people, they have their followers. They have their followers, Bujingo.
and others.
No, they are the ones who preach around here. You know,
Aloysius, you hear that? Aloysius?
Yeah. So these are cults.
He watches only Soul TV.
Yeah. So cults have cult leaders.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you think of the President Museveni as chairman of NRM as a cult leader because he leads this organization. Nobody can challenge him. When in a cult arrangement, nobody challenges you. So you have then in a cult, so you have a priest or the chief priests. Then you have priests and priestesses. So when you cite Richard Todong as Secretary General, I'm hearing you talking about a priest
in a cult organization.
And his job is to make sure that the cult is served, the priest is served, and everybody follows. And then you have altar boys and altar girls. So you'll find Patrick there saying, but actually he's an altar boy. Really, you have no consequence in the overall organization of this institution called the cult. So, and NRM, so Uganda has been so unfortunate that it's led by an organization that cannot be defined in terms of institutional character. That internally, when you look at the internal organization of the NRM, what do you see? So because you see an organization that has rules, that has values, that is led by people of character, it is those values and characters that they infuse on the society which they lead. So if that organization, and we can say this of NRM, we can say it of FDC, we can say it of NUP, if all those organizations are led as cult organizations, Ugandans must understand that those organizations cannot change or cannot add a lot of value to the country. In terms of character, you can have a very successful cult, the organization that leads brings economic growth, but you'll find that they are the people, the priests and the priestesses, they are the ones who control the wealth. The rest of you are followers. But if you are going to create overall prosperity of the entire organization, that is driven by character, by principle, by values.
Okay. Mr. Job Kija, just yesterday, I asked a senior presidential advisor, Mr. Moses Biarhanga, about how is it possible that the National Voters Register is 18 million strong, but also the NRM Voters Yellow Book is also 18 million strong. And his explanation was that, you see, we registered even those who are 16 years because we knew when it comes to time for election, they will be 18 and eligible to vote. So that's how we come to 18 million NRM Yellow Book members.
But are you using that to explain?
I'm throwing that at him so that he can. He's a political analyst, so to analyze it for me.
So maybe
but I'm quoting
this one needs a statistician.
But I'm quoting him.
This one, Patrick, needs a statistician.
So I have looked at those figures, yes. And I remember months back, as on this same show, with I think the spokesperson of the NRM caucus in Parliament, and I hinted on those numbers, and he himself was actually indicated that internally they were shocked by the numbers.
They were surprisingly.
Yeah, because you see, the NRM voters register has grown by 70%. The membership register by 70% from this update exercise that they did.
Okay, so sorry, Job. You guys, you need to be honest with Ugandans. Grown from what to what?
Yeah, so
I was there in 2016. The NRM main fighting with NRM go forward on where the register was. They never had anything. They never had a register. So it grew from what to what? So where is the register?
So
you guys. You know that's why I don't want to discuss NRM register.
No, you see, Godba, they have a register.
They have a register.
Okay.
Where is it?
As of today, they are saying 18 million.
They did a voter register update exercise in May. Yeah. They did a membership register exercise in May.
Yes.
Okay, they took about 2 months, I think, doing that exercise. they came up with a register just before the census. They came up with a register of 18.3 million people.
So every voter is NRM.
So wait a minute. The EC register has 18.1 million people. The NRM register has 18.3 million people.
And for them, they were also adding the people who are going to get to 18 by this time.
Yeah. Well, that could be the explanation. So fast forward. So the EC register is 18.1 million people. The NRM register is 18.3 million people.
Yeah.
When you talk to...
If I'm to use today's language,
yeah.
Kawed them.
Kawed them already.
Yes.
When you talk to... Okay, before I even go to Noop, okay? When you look at the...
Noop was 19.
Okay, let's go to Noop first. Noop. They're also still updating their register, but the last we checked before they started the update, they are 12 million.
12 million.
So they are 12 million. Now, that is before you bring in FDC Katonga, before you bring in FDC Najanankumbi, before you bring in ANT, before you bring in UPC, before you bring in DP, JEMA, SDP, and all the other parties. Now,
so in other words, the 45 million Ugandans
they are all on the register.
All registered
now,
voters.
And the
babies and all this.
And you see, for me, that
I think we're a joke.
It brings out.
That's why I'm really bothered by. That's why I'm bothered by this kind of discussion, because you see, if you think of NRM with 18.3 million voters, and the EC 18.1 million voters, from there you say we are a joke as a country, and therefore there is no reason why we should spend airtime discussing a voters register. We should be discussing other things. How did we get to this point where you have an electoral commission that does not know the voters that we have, that does not have control over the registration process? Because if anything, a serious electoral commission that has been in place for now, like for how many years, there would be an electronic register that everybody who gets to 18, you are able to go there and register. The system verifies, and the voters register is being updated real time. So when they say, oh, the voters update of voters register, you are basically dealing with, we are a people that are unserious. We pretend to be serious. When you see all these guys, you will see the chairman of the Electoral Commission, he's organizing a press conference and announcing a roadmap. They all look serious, but we are just a bunch of unserious people, and we need to accept. And that's why that even when we have elections with violence, then we all celebrate that we had an election. As Job said, we have had violence in election since 2001. In 2006, that was extreme violence. Yeah? In 2011, I think that's when Besigye won in Kasese. And that was followed violence by the UPDF attacking Mumbere's partisan and destroying the party. 2016. Yeah, 2016. 2016, first of all, 2016 election was like, that was like a military coup. Because if you were here and you saw how the UPDF deployed in Kampala to contain this, that's a military coup. That happens when the military has taken over a country. Yeah, that does not happen when there has been an election. In the aftermath, the UPDF attacks the Rwenzururu Paris. People are killed. But more interestingly, you have more than 100 men, young men and women who are held in jail without trial for 4 years. They are only released to go and vote in the 2021 election. And then we say, oh, there is a voter register, there is a, we have a roadmap. So I think that, I still believe that as a people, I think we need to take a step back. And for me, if I met President Museveni, that's what I would ask him. I say, man, you've done a wonderful job for this country, for the region. I think, as I've already said, President Museveni is our good leader past prime time. Yeah? He has done phenomenal contribution to Uganda, to the region, but he's only now a bridge to the future. He can't be the future. it's just natural. He can't be the future. So his main task now would be to say, okay, how do I engineer a peaceful transition of power from myself to a future where Ugandans gain control of how they run their affairs? Because right now, Ugandans, we are all like hostages. I always say Uganda is like a big prison where the UPDF and the police are the prison warders. So those of us, so the only difference is the degree of confinement. There are those who are kept in the four-wall cell. There are those who are going to be in, you meet business people. You just need to meet business people and see how scared they are.
Yeah.
You need to meet people in the banks. In these banks you see, if they get a letter from Bank of Uganda, they can even close your account before they even know why they have written. That's a big prison. And people do not understand. And unfortunately, for the president who has been trying very hard to trigger a transformation in this country, people have to realize that freedom is what unleashes the ingenuity of a people. Yeah? If there is one big resource in any country, it is freedom, because there is a way it opens up the mind, it opens us the space, people begin to innovate. When people are oppressed, then they will be there. You can't think. They will concentrate on growing 5 cabbages and this fene and what, and they say we are now in a money economy. We are having socio-economic transformation, and they will all be there celebrating. They will not think of the big ideas that define the future and make a country begin to participate in the global economic space.
Okay, as we try to conclude this discussion, Job, you spent quite a lot of time trying to teach Ugandans to honor their vote, to the integrity of I remember you even had a campaign.
Why is God laughing at me? Why are you laughing at me?
You know, sort of have some civic competence and all that kind of stuff.
I think on 27th we should. Is it 27th the NRM day? Nobody, there's that 25th.
What happened to the civic competence?
We should not say they give you a medal. It's photo power.
The person who's giving out medals died.
So what happened to all those efforts of civic competence and whatever, voter integrity and stuff like that? Because like now, commercialization of politics is a real problem. Money is going to be thrown into this.
Yeah. So
like never before.
One of the things, of course, the current regime has done is really to destroy institutions through which citizens can claim their citizenship or even express themselves. Because, I mean, there are so many laws that have been put across. The Public Order Management Act, which even when the Constitutional Court threw it out, we still have, I think there's still some sort of standoff. The Attorney General is trying to reactivate.
But even if it doesn't reactivate, this regime will still implement the law, even if it was repealed.
Yeah, anyway, still, the law was repealed, but still there are a number of places where it is being implemented. The NGO law and all these other laws that have been put in place, FIA, and so many others. But also we've had certain actions that have been taken by the regime to really close civic space. Just after the last elections, over 54 organizations were shut down. And so really what has happened is that it has become...
We're ordered shut down.
We're ordered shut down. I know one of the victims is here. One of the victims is here. So they were ordered shut down. Yeah. But there are a number of other actions which this regime has done, which has sent a number of civic actors into what you'd call self-preservation mode. So that space has, in a way, been closed. But of course, you'll find that in different ways, civic actors, civic organizations are trying to build civic competence in different ways, innovatively. So a number of those campaigns, in a way, died with the onslaught on civil society by closing civic space through the NGO bureau and all these other actions that have been taken. I mean, Godba's brother was arrested just after the last elections, Dickens Kamugisha, and a number of other civil society actors were arrested thereafter. Bank accounts were frozen, and this continues. Donors, DGF was the biggest funding agency to both civil society organizations and state institutions that were actually trying to build civic competence, the Human Rights Commission, Parliament, and the Electoral Commission.
And as you know, in my
and even the NGO Bureau.
And in my other life, as you know, I was a victim of the DGF leaving the country. Because
Wizards Media and the like, SEDU, which was the entity that was running the Honor Your Vote campaign, was shut down by the NGO Bureau, but also DGF was one of its biggest funders. So the point I'm making is that the government has deliberately killed civic agency by targeting civil society organizations, but by also targeting funding agencies. Right now, if you speak to donors and ask whether they are going to support any efforts towards building civic agency in respect to the next elections, you're not getting a concrete answer. And I mean, we are now just a few months away. Actually, the election roadmap has started. By now, civil society organizations should have started. Campaigns like Honor Your Vote, Topoa, by now had already started in 2010 and even 2015. But right now, the situation we are in is to the effect that this is no longer as possible as it was.
If DGF can be scared out of the country.
DGF was bringing together over 7 European entities that were funding it.
All right, and we're coming to the end of our, what's going to be a concluding remark, Joe?
So for me, really, my concluding remark is that we, as a country, are in a state of fear, which has been deliberately created by the current establishment, and I think we can't continue running like that, because if this government thinks of something, anything to do with legacy, they should actually be asking themselves, what kind of legacy are we leaving behind? Are we leaving a legacy whereby when an MP dies, we are suspected of having killed that MP? Are we leaving a legacy whereby if someone is arrested, we are suspected to have trumped up charges against these people? When I get into the custody of law enforcement officers, the quickest thing I am worried of is whether I will come out safe without being poisoned, or I will not be sodomized. Because actually, if we are to go by the stories that we have heard from the people that were in the march arrested in respect to the march to Parliament, and others actually that were arrested in the last elections, they have claimed that actually they've been sodomized. So the question is, right now, anybody will be worried. Will I get out safe? Will I get out unsafe? Women have been raped. They have indicated that they were raped. So I mean, this government should be thinking about what legacy are they leaving behind. When threats like beheading Bobi Wine and removing his teeth by the CDF, by the son of the president are made, is this the kind of legacy?
He has called them jokes. No. I mean, okay, if the son of the president and the commander of defense forces is joking in such a manner, on a public platform, a global public platform, is that the legacy that this establishment wants to be remembered for? Good by saying it, we're living in abnormal times. Yeah, it's going to be a parting shot.
No, so today one of the things that really stuck on my mind, I was at Forest Mall, and then there is this guy, I don't know who it was, in a tinted vehicle, and basically is escorted by these commandos. Yeah, so one pickup truck in front, one pickup truck behind, but you have one commando in the front, one at the back, two in the side, and all of them guns like this.
This is a high priest.
I was there wondering. I said, but
and this is what you call the high priest?
No, but I got bothered. I said, but this man who is in this car, man or woman, who is in this car, I was now not even curious on who was inside, because I just kept on thinking. I said, I would want to see the character of the people this man fears, because it means that he's being guarded from some people. So now I got curious. I said, I would want to see who are these guys who can scare someone to the extent that you need this level of security. Yeah.
When I hosted the former Speaker of Parliament, Rebecca Kadaga, here, and you know, Parliament is just next door.
Yeah.
So they came in the Mercedes Benz.
Yeah.
When they entered the Serena Gate, There was a commando on the front side of the tire, a commando behind.
Yes,
no,
yeah.
I saw this, and all of them dressed like cyborg.
Hooded.
Yes, hooded.
Hooded.
And then they're coming here.
Like, okay.
And then I'm like, and then they're jogging on the Mercedes-Benz until it came and reached here.
Yeah.
So good, but we've seen these things.
So
no,
but you know that,
so what I'm thinking,
because you see,
the other day I was in the restaurant having lunch. And then there's someone called Frank Gashumba. And I saw a soldier entering with a gun, and then behind him was Frank Gashumba, and he started to have his meal.
Good boy, you saw Frank. Good boy, you saw Frank Gashumba. You saw my friend
Maybe,
Frank.
but so, look, so the point is, you know, in my mind it was like, but this one should normally happen in these cities where we know there are drug cartels. The other drug cartel is fighting this one. That's what came to my mind. But as I said earlier, when the government fears the people, there is liberty. When people fear government, there is tyranny. When the two fear each other, there is anarchy. And as a country, as a government, I think that we really need to come together and begin to talk about the future of this country. I think I've said time and again that right now, the future of this country that we desire as a generation can no longer be delivered by a group called NRM. It can't be delivered by the groups called opposition political parties. It has to be delivered by all of us. That's why I've consistently called and said we need to have a national dialogue and talk to ourselves and agree on a new consensus, because as far as I'm concerned, the 1995 consensus has been totally mutilated and abrogated. And that's the research, one of the researches we are working on, and therefore, and again, as I said, I wish President Museveni could have a soul moment, so that he feels like, because I think he still has the respect of Ugandans. He still has the convening power. You know, he can now call all of us Ugandans and say, guys, let's talk about the future.
All right.
Let's not have a future that is defined by anarchy, by violence and fear.
Mr. Godibert Mushabe, I want to thank you so much for the time you've given us. Mr. Job Kijasa, I want to thank you, both of you, for your submission. I believe in the people of Uganda. I know their commitment. I know their resilience. As a country, we have been through a lot of times, sometimes tumultuous times, and we always pull through. I'm hopeful that Uganda shall make it. It may not be tomorrow or the other day, but as a people, we shall get there. But as a people, we will get there. Good night and God bless Uganda.